What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Payton Collier podcast. My next guest is a singer-songwriter on the rise here in Nashville. His new song, Sedona, is available now on all streaming platforms, and you can catch his band every Monday night at The Local. I'm a big fan of this guy. The first time I saw him play, I was super impressed with his musicianship. He surrounded himself with some great musicians. He's a great songwriter, and I'm very excited about what the future holds for him. I also found out a couple weeks after I moved into my house here in Nashville that he is my next door neighbor. He literally lives right across, our front doors face each other. So it wasn't too hard to get him to walk across the street and come over and do the podcast. But I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that you will too. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Will Jones. Will Jones, what's up, brother?
Payton Collier.
Thanks for coming in today, man. I know I'm sure it was a treacherous walk across the street.
I almost broke a sweat. Almost. But I walked a little faster so I could get to the AC.
I first ran into you and saw what you were doing. We went to see the Time Jumpers one night at the old 3rd and Lindsley. My good buddy Jared Wilson, who's a drummer around here, he was at the Time Jumpers show as well, and he's like, we're going to The Local to see Will Jones. And we walked in. I was absolutely blown away by your band. I don't know if there's it's hard to say the best in a place like Nashville, but it is a fine collection of musicians that you've pieced together.
Yes,
over there at The Local. We loved that show, man. How'd you get that going?
You know, Jeff Reed, the owner of The Local, is a good buddy of mine, and he had reached out to me because Sam Banks is who I co-host that show with, my buddy Sam, and they were doing, kind of during the tail end of COVID, we're doing an acoustic show at The Local on Sundays, which they still do, and Jeff was wanting to do a full band show sometime during the week. And so we were like, well, what's your slowest night of the week? You know, and it was Monday nights.
Intentionally, you wanted the slowest.
Like, let's jump in there on a Monday night. And now we've got Sunday and Monday, the two slowest nights of the week. And we do it's an awesome hang. So now, like, the two, Sunday and Monday nights are at The Local are killer.
And you got Keo back there on the drums. Black Yoda, baby.
Dude, my dude. Keo Strout, baby. The best.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got Keo on drums, Brandon Talby on bass, Neil Jones, brother Neil, Shaquille O'Steele over there on the steel guitar.
Shaquille O'Steele.
Yeah, Keo
I
came
like
up
it.
with that. I can't really take credit for that.
Shaquille O'Steele.
Yeah, Neil Jones on steel. Yeah, me and Sam. It's an awesome band. It's we just nerd out. That's our Monday night nerd out night.
Yeah, I like that you took the initiative. You're like, let's take the slowest night and try to boost it up a little bit.
Why not?
And I took my mom out to see you one time, and my parents loved it. And then moved into my new house and was setting up the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And I saw your name on the Wi-Fi.
I can't get away from Will Jones. He's everywhere.
Yeah, so I texted you or I messaged you on Instagram. I was like, hey, man, do you happen to live on this street at this number? And you're like, yeah, dude, we're fucking neighbors.
Sure do.
But no, man, I'm really interested in what you're doing and the kind of music that you're playing. I'm sure that you know the culture of music and the preservation of country music in Nashville
100%.
is a unique and rare commodity these days. A lot of bands, a lot of people that move here, it seems, are like Instagram influencers that just want to get on stage and take pictures. And so
they move around with their own posse of vlogging cameras.
Vlogging cameras.
It's crazy.
And so I really admire, your as an individual and your group's preservation of country music and your artistry. So I'm super excited to get in the weeds here. So tell me about your life growing up. Where did you grow up, and how did this get rolling for you?
Well, it kind of makes sense for this whole preservation of country music and kind of what we're doing. I was raised up in Virginia, in the southwestern part of the beautiful state of Virginia, a little community called Cana, Virginia. It's right on the state line of North Carolina. The closest town to it is Mount Airy, North Carolina, about 15 minutes away. And so I was raised up there playing traditional bluegrass music. So my dad played around the house, and I got into it when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and started playing guitar and singing with him, and then it kind of took off, and then my two older sisters started playing music, and one played mandolin, the other played bass, Laura Lee and Ashley, and so then we formed a family bluegrass band, like a lot of people do, but it was awesome because of how much talent my family has. So we spent years, we cut 3 different projects, and spent years playing bluegrass festivals, and every weekend we were at a different fiddlers convention, just jamming and playing bluegrass music. So that's kind of how I grew up, which is pretty good. And then when I was about 17, I bought a Telecaster and was like, okay, I got to figure out what's going on with this whole chicken picking world.
Yeah.
I think we'd taken a trip to Nashville, and I saw Don Kelly. I think Guthrie was playing with Don Kelly Band or something, and I was just like, all right, because I was a big flat picker, acoustic guitar, Tony Rice, bluegrass music, and I was like, I got to figure out how to do that. And so then I started playing all this country stuff. Of course, I was raised on Haggard and Jones and Keith Whitley and all the good stuff too, But
yeah, I can hear some of that Keith Whitley singing, and you got them Kentucky bluegrass runs.
Dude, we was all
trickled its way up to Virginia.
Stanley Brothers, baby.
Yeah, when you sipping on some of that good old Mountain Dew. So when you are in a family that where everybody plays, I mean, you're kind of like learning it as a language, like you do, or how like I always use this as an example. People that grow up in bilingual homes,
Sure.
It's easy for them to learn two languages because your brain's like a sponge at that point.
Yeah.
And I'd love your input on this, but I talk to people a lot. I think if you get the exposure to playing and singing at that age, you're getting like a 20-year head start. And some people have disagreed with me, so I'm curious, like you growing up, bluegrass and music in your family, the way that you're communicating to your family and your community is through music as well as language.
Yes.
So do you feel like you got a head start being born in the Jones family?
100%. And specifically in my situation growing up, because my parents had such awesome taste in music, So I definitely think I did. And even now, when I'll go into rooms with certain writers or older writers or people who've just been here a while, and they're like, "How do you know about all this old country stuff?" And it's kind of a testament to a lot of the, and there's nothing wrong with this, but there's to a lot of the younger writers and stuff that don't know who Ricky Skaggs is, or they don't know who some of these people are, and you're like, what? And so I think a lot of people are kind of taken back by it, but especially when you're raised playing roots music, and bluegrass music. You have a sense of preservation for that stuff because it's so special. So you kind of even lean into that harder, you know what I mean? And so I definitely had a head start, I think, being around that and being raised on good music,
What was your and harmonies too? I'm sure if you're all singing together
For sure.
Do you remember like what was it? Just kind of a natural introduction? Did you just kind of fall in your spot, or
for me it was weird. It was like my dad had bought me my parents had got me a cassette tape player for Christmas that had like all these crazy colorful buttons on it and like a little microphone on the side.
Oh, like a kiddie cassette player.
Yeah, and like a little mic you can talk through.
Oh yeah.
Pretty cool.
Got a little some analog reverb in that thing.
Yes. And I didn't have a cassette tape to play in it, so I went and took one of my dad's, which was a bluegrass gospel tape. It was a J.D. Crowe tape, and I learned a song off of it. And I was like, "Hey, dude, learned this song." He's like, "Hold on just a second. Let me go get my guitar." Right? This is fun. So that's where I kind of started, and he had a little guitar that he had bought for my sister, and I started playing that, and it was weirdly, it kind of came to me, man. Like, it was one of those things. I think everybody's got a God-given talent. For me, it was playing guitar, and I just couldn't get enough, And, of course, my dad was an awesome guitar instructor, too. He was self-taught, but he was a great instructor when it came to playing guitar and singing harmonies,
So would you just learn those fiddle tunes by ear and stuff, like do?
Yeah, he would teach them. He would teach them to me, and then once we kind of got to the point where we had surpassed what he had guitar wise and mechanically and all of that. It's just you're just kind of picking it up everywhere you go. And in the bluegrass world, it's like a big family, man. So you just kind of get out there in festivals and everybody's jamming, and you just kind of hang around and you learn all that stuff by ear. I always learn by ear anyway for anything else. But yeah, it's just a big get in there and start learning it and figuring it out.
Yeah. So growing up, would you mostly just listen to bluegrass music, or would you hear like Alan Jackson on the radio?
Oh yeah, I always heard country songs and country music, but I was a nerd, man, when it came to music. From a young age, I was mostly listening to bluegrass music. I would dive into James Taylor or whoever it was going to be, for short stints of time. But most of everything kind of originated with my love for bluegrass music, and it just took me in different ways.
And so you said you grabbed that Telecaster at 17.
Yeah, dude.
You finally, what put you over the edge on that? You said you came here.
I think it might have been that trip. I can't really remember. I was 16 or 17 in high school and had just gotten into listening to all this chicken picking stuff, you know. I was like, man, I got to figure out, as a guitar nerd, I was like, dude, I got to figure out how to do that, you know. And so I bought a Telecaster and started trying to figure that whole thing out. And once I started doing that, that just kind of kept growing, you know.
I remember I got for Christmas one year Brad Paisley's Time Well Wasted album.
Yeah, dude.
And at the end of that is Time Warp.
Yep.
The instrumental.
Yep.
And that's how I started, like, I think that's when I identified what chicken picking was, because you don't know growing up that every song you hear Brent Mason is on.
100%.
And so you start backtracking and seeing how a lot of the new guys got it from Brent and the licks that he would write on songs, and then where Brent got it from the guys.
Sure.
You know, it's just a deep rabbit hole, and it's a very different style of playing than the bluegrass thing.
It is, man. And when I really started getting into it, I spent so much time learning how to hybrid pick, you know, being a traditional flat picker, that like I had to pick up an acoustic guitar and play bluegrass stuff to keep my chops up on the bluegrass side, because I was playing electric and chicken picking all the time. And it's two different worlds for sure.
Do you feel like you've lost any of your athleticism in the bluegrass chops?
Maybe a little bit, but I don't really feel like I have. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, I'm not scared to get on in there with a old D18 and hammer down.
Yeah, hammer it down. Yeah, you got, you know, that's another thing too I like about your original music that I've seen online, is you've got great acoustic guitar riffs. You're not just up there barely making your way through chords. Yeah. And I don't want to keep bashing on what I feel like is a majority of people that that don't put the time in. No. But I think that's what you see when you go to your shows, is just a group of guys that have paid their due, that have been clocked in for a long time, trying to, and a lot of your guitar solos and stuff are very thoughtful note choices, and not just like, watch me shred.
Yeah, man.
I spend a lot of time hybrid picking.
Right. Yeah, I think there's I don't know, everybody's got their own path and their own way of doing things, you know, and I'm all for that. I'm like, dude, do what you do, you know what I mean, and lean on into it. I'm not a hater. I'm the opposite, you know. I love to see people win. But when it comes to being, you know, especially on Monday nights, that's kind of why we do Monday nights, is like that's our night to musically nerd out with each other. And the way that I enjoy doing that is through, you know, musical maturity and like leaning on into how can I play guitar and less is more thing, and, you know, let's let the band breathe and dynamics, you know, and all that kind of stuff. Just play with music, man. Music's fun. Yeah,
doing it to be to stimulate yourselves rather than to be eclectic. You know,
100% super selfish. Yeah, it's awesome.
So, so you had this family head start and everything, and also, so would you say this bond was like chiefly between you and your dad playing music?
Yeah, it
like, was he like the figurehead of the bluegrass corral
in our family? I mean,
the patriarch.
Yeah, man, and man, my parents are so cool, dude. They're so cool. My dad for sure. It was me and him for a couple years. Just me and him kind of heading off, and that was our thing, you know, playing some bluegrass together. And I mean, I was little. I was like 7 or 8 years old, you know. And then when my sisters got into it, we started doing the family thing. And it got that much more fun because, man, like I would say it if it was, you know, if it was true. Like my sisters, though, they're awesome. They're incredibly talented. So we kind of lucked up in this situation where my family is like just all super gifted in music. And man, when we were like jamming or working out shows or like harmony and stuff like that, we were super into it because it was like legit and it was really great. So it made it really, really fun.
Did you fight with your siblings like a normal American kid?
Well, yeah, you know, honestly, we're really close and like super, you know, we get along really good. But yeah, for sure, when you're like working out a song, you know, we had the unique situation where it's like we were disagreeing on like who's dragging or who's pushing. You know, it's like you're dragging a little bit. It's like, nah, I ain't dragging.
You push them down because somebody is
somebody's rushing. I'm in time. I don't know where you're playing. You know, no, it was awesome.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I was so, my siblings and I were so mean to each other. I mean, we were just like hitting remotes over each other's heads.
Well, I had 4 sisters, so I was the only boy.
Where are you at in the?
Man, it's crazy. So I'm technically, I guess, the baby of the family. I got 5 kids. Us 5 kids. I'm a triplet with 2 girls, and I got 2 older sisters. So
that's pretty rare.
Little Will Jones fun fact.
Yeah,
a little triplet action going on there.
Willie, what are your sisters' names like? Willie, Tilly, and Billy or something?
No. That would actually be awesome, though.
That would be great.
No, man. It's Ashley, Laura Lee, Mary Alden, and Caitlin.
Do they play here? Or do they still live back home?
So they're kind of everywhere. I got my two triplet sisters, Mary Alden and Caitlin, both live in Charleston, South Carolina, which is an ugly place to live, and I hate them for it. My oldest sister, Ashley, still lives back home, and my sister, Laura Lee, she lives here in Nashville, so she's here. She works over at the Opry. So if you ever see the whole tour of the Opry stuff that they do over there, all these tours and stuff, she heads that over there and does a great job. So.
We went for the first time. I guess we didn't tour it, but we went to see. We went because Ashley McBride was going to be there a couple weeks ago, and I'm from Arkansas, and just love her songwriting.
I do too,
and she's the real deal.
She is
not just bouncing around on them hip hop beats.
Dude, she's doing it.
Yeah. So you get the electric guitar under your belt. When did you finally decide? Or I always ask this, to people, like there's that moment where it's a hobby, it's something you love to do, it's something you identify yourself with. I'm a musician in my community. I've got my guitar case, and then there's a moment where you're like, this is going to be my life. And for a lot of people, there's no turning back.
No, you're stepping off the edge.
Yeah,
and you're committed,
jumping off that cliff.
Yep. I think for me, it was I got out of college and went to Virginia Tech. Go Hokies! If we got some, Tech people. I got out of college.
Tons of Tech listeners.
Yeah, just lots.
Millions.
Lots of them. Got out of college, man, and had graduated a little early from Tech, and I was like, what am I going to do? And I was looking around some options, and I was like, man, I literally can't remember not playing music. I mean, I honestly can't really remember a time where I wasn't playing music, So music's just been who I am my whole life. And so I was like, I'm going to put together a country band and then go play some honky-tonk country music. And so I did. And we did that. We played clubs for several years up and down the East Coast and street festivals and amphitheaters and stuff like that. And then I was doing that, which was I wouldn't trade those years for nothing. I think the answer to your question, too, is you kind of decide to make that commitment when you're going down the road in an old van and you're getting paid no money and you're kind of making it work and you're out there like you're invested at that point. You've bought a bunch of PA gear, you've got all your gear, and you're out there trying to do what you're doing. At that point, you just kind of put too much blood, sweat, and tears into it to be like, I ain't going to quit. I'm not going to quit on this. So that's what I did, and I did that for years, man, a few years. And then kind of, was getting kind of tired and beat up on playing all these club shows, doing cover sets, and was like, man, I want to, I need to change this. If I really want to create an artist thing, create something, build something that is who is Will Jones as a country artist, I'm just going to have to move to Nashville because that's where the songwriters live, the best ones, and it all goes back to songwriting, So that's how I ended up doing that.
That's a huge realization for people too.
It's a scary one too.
Well,
for sure.
Well, I think as an artist, I mean, you brought up James Taylor earlier.
Yeah.
You could bring up the Eagles or even the old bluegrass standards, but people that have a deep appreciation for music know it always comes back to the song.
It does, dude.
It's not the beat, it's just the words. And like I can I got it on my hat, but I mean, if I'm watching Blaze Foley play acoustic by himself, I think Haggard's the best to ever do it. I love his riffs and runs and his phrasing. But something about just that stripped down Blaze Foley, John Prine, it's like, and if the word Dean Dillon,
yeah, man,
if the words and the chords aren't gonna rip your head off,
that's right,
then you can probably do better.
That's right. And it's a unique thing too, man, when you really commit to being like, I want to be a better songwriter. And you come to Nashville where the best songwriters live and you start writing with some of these guys that you admire and look up to. It's such a craft and a skill set to learn how to do that, and you never quit learning how to do it. And every time I get in a room with one of those guys, I'm like, golly, I got so far to go. But at the same time, it's awesome, And then when you take those songs out and you play them for a live audience who's never heard them before and maybe never heard you before, that's when you really learn what that connection is between the words of that song and that audience and how to make that happen. But when you make that happen and you get an audience super fired up over a lyric that you wrote, man, there ain't nothing better than that.
Yeah, you have somebody come up to you after and be like, when you said this.
Yeah.
And you remember where you were at, in your house or in the garage or whatever. pen and paper.
Dude, for sure. Or you have somebody, come up and they like start relating why your song resonates with them, and they compare it to like something significant in their life, or maybe it's just a, hell raising, beer drinking, good time song, but it still like connects with them in a way. It's cool.
So you mentioned earlier when you were saying when you pay your dues, you're in the van and you're too invested to kind of turn back at that point. I think it's kind of analogous to like, you don't know if you're in a serious relationship till you like go on vacation with somebody. And it's like, if you can make it through that, then maybe it's worth persevering.
Yeah.
And just tying that into like, if you're willing to suffer while you pursue this lifestyle 100%. And you still want to do it, you're willing to, have lighter meals, a colder house or whatever it is. That means you're really in. Yeah, dude. And so it sounds like you really value that time up and down the East Coast and with those boys is like that was you paying your big boy dues.
Kinda. It was, man. And let me tell you too, there is nothing that will thicken your skin like getting off stage at 2 a.m, loading up all your own gear or all your own PA gear too, and getting in a van or whatever and driving however many hours you got to go, and you might have made $100, and you're grabbing that Taco Bell, 12 tacos for $12, $13. I don't know. Do they still do that?
It's the party pack, dude.
It's awesome. Grab one of those. You're welcome, everyone. Let's live a little.
Yeah.
No, man.
Bring them to the local. Get in free. Monday nights.
Yeah, dude. Tacos for everyone. No, man. You just got to feel that level of exhaustion, and you got to feel it for a while, to really like gain what you gain from it. But there's nothing I would ever trade for that, and it's hard. And I think naturally, a lot of that weeds a lot of people out, but it really never quits being hard. I don't think that ever stops. I think you might end up with more people helping you. But when you're still driving that train, you're still the cat on the front of the stage, kind of making sure that everything's going the way it needs to go and doing that. It never really stops, so you don't ever really get to be like, oh yeah, if I get to this point or what, I think it never quits being hard. So I wouldn't trade that stuff for nothing, man. I think it's super important.
I really appreciate that to anybody yeah, but I try to sit in the interviewer spot.
Yeah,
sometimes. But I mean, and I struggle with this too, and I'd love your insight on this. But I think it seems, I'm sure you have some nights on those Monday night shows that are blowouts, and you have some where the clock is just slowly ticking by, and there's not a lot of people there by the end of the night. And I think me playing gigs on Broadway or wherever I'm playing here. The career musicians, the lifers, the guys that have spent that time in the van that you're talking about, they're not up there losing their shit because it's slow.
No way.
They know I chose this life so that I wouldn't have to wake up tomorrow at 8 a.m. and go sit at a desk till 5 and stare at a computer.
Forget it.
And then you got a lot of these, and I struggle with this, the temperament sometimes, but I mean and I feel like I'm getting better at it. But when you just know when you sink into the reality and the truth that it is a privilege to do this and
100%.
to be able to pay your bills. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you can just get there by being like, I want to be a singer.
No
go
way.
To Nashville.
No way, dude. You know how many shows I've played for just the bartenders, man? A bunch. And I'll probably play more, but I always think in that situation, like if it's super slow or you're playing some gig in the middle of who knows where and there ain't nobody there or there's a few people there, it's like find a way, turn around and look at your band and enjoy the music you're playing together. Because a lot of times you'll just get on autopilot mode and you're just playing music and you're doing the show or you're doing whatever. But it's like take a second to like turn around, look at your dudes, right? Have fun with the music. If you're having fun, they'll have fun. And man, I always just found a way to connect with whoever I could connect with, and I still do because I love to know people. I want to know you. If you're at my show, like I want to know who you are. What's up? Thank you for being here and hanging out with me so I can do this. So like, how can I sing a song that you want to hear and like make your night cool? And I don't think that ever changes if you're playing for 3 people or 5,000 people.
A lot of people never
possess. Or the bartender. You know what I mean? Like, hey, what's up, Sally?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to hear?
A lot of people never acquire or possess that outlook. though.
Man, that makes it hard too.
Right.
Because
It's like, yeah, you see all these people. It's like, if you're hating what you're doing, why are you up here doing it?
don't do it to yourself.
There's somebody who's going to take that gig with a smile.
For
brother.
sure. And it's really it's bigger than that too, because this is, people moving to Nashville or have been in Nashville for a little while. I think if you move here with the mindset of like, I'm going to try to do what this person to my parallel is doing, right? Or I'm going to try to just like chase that mouse, some specific thing, then you're just putting like this impossible accomplishment on your shoulders that you don't need to be wearing around all the time. Or, I mean, I even see, it's so easy to be like to come to Nashville and like get a chip on your shoulder about certain things, or what something's doing really good, and you're like, you don't buy into it, or whatever, opinion that you have about something. If you start creating that stuff, then you're just creating like a more difficult sled to push, man. It's just going to weigh you down. Let it go.
Putting a demon in your head.
It is, dude. It's like, man, do what you do, let it roll, man, and have fun with it.
I think too, just the kind of a winner's mentality. Like successful people want their peers to be successful.
100%.
You don't, if you're scrolling through that Instagram and you're so angry your buddy got a #1 hit.
That's right.
And guess what? There's 8 billion people in the world. There's plenty of people. There's enough people for Mariah Carey to have a huge fan base, and for Coulter Wall to have a huge fan base.
100%, man. And at the end of the day, it's like you got to get yourself in a spot where you mean that. Like, you can't just be like, oh yeah, like I'm so happy for him. It's like, no, man, like you need to be in a position where you're like, I enjoy seeing people win. I like to see people do successful things. You know what I mean? Because that's just a great environment to be around. And I want to surround myself with healthy relationships, of people around me who have that same mentality. Because once you get around that, then it's like, oh man, like I'm having fun. Then you start having fun with what you're doing because you're not so worried about all that other stuff. It's like, don't worry about it, man. Do what you're doing.
Yeah, I think I just finding that mentality. You and I have talked before about the when you move here, when you made the decision to move here.
Yep.
You are abandoning the comfort zone of being a big fish in a small pond
100%,
back home.
100%.
And you come here and you're back at the bottom of the totem pole.
Complete reset.
Yeah. And so really it's kind of like Mulan makes a man out of you.
Yeah, dude.
Let's get down to business to defeat the Huns.
It does, man.
And here, it's pretty easy too. You start sifting through the people like that get it and the ones that don't. And the closer you get to the ones that get it, the better your life gets, the better your influx of opportunities is,
Yeah. No, it's so true, man. And it's that way with musicians and songwriters and friends that you make in town. When I came here, I had my sister here, and so I had her and a couple of her friends and stuff here that, that I knew. But man, I just started going out to writers' nights, and started playing in some writers' rounds. And then I just started, gravitating musically towards the people that I felt like we had a lot in common, and made all my friends that way. And I still got those friends, and songwriting relationships. And I was really blessed too. After I moved to town, met a guy named Monty Holmes, and Monty was so cool to me. And
where'd you meet him?
So I actually met him. I had moved to town and had gotten a text. I was down in Key West. For anybody that ever went out down to Key West and played Cowboy Bills, it was like the country event. It's not there now anymore.
Oh, rest in peace, Cowboy Bills.
Right on Duval Street. I had the Mechanical Bull, Cowboy. It was a whole just looked like every two-step club you've ever played.
Throwing middle-aged white people in khaki shorts off the bowl.
Yeah, man. And I was down there and had gotten a text and from somebody, and when I got back to town, we connected up, and me and Monty became super good buddies. And I'm so thankful for like him, people like him who've been so cool to me when I first moved to town, and really started kind of making me write songs. I mean, you come to town with your songs that you have written, and they're horrible, and it's like you just go out there and you start playing them, and then you just invest time and writing a lot, and you write a lot. So I moved here in 2019. So I was in April 2019 when I finally moved to Nashville. And
And nothing bad was going to happen in the next year.
Man, the world was beautiful. It was great.
So many people moved here that, their bags are packed. They're smiling. They've got flowers behind their ears.
Mom. Right.
And then boom.
Yeah.
So before that went down, what was it like when you first got here? Just finding a place to live, and like, were you set up? Did you know where you were going to live before you got here?
Yep. So I was living with my buddy Daniel Haymore, who's a pedal steel player, banjo player, and he's from back around my neck of the woods.
Shout out Daniel.
Yeah, dude. What's up, Daniel? Talked to him right before I came over here, actually. I was living with Daniel. And so we were going out, to like Honky Tonk Tuesdays at the Legion Post, and I was going around to several different spots and just meeting people and hanging out and stuff like that. And it wasn't too terribly long after I had moved here, before I was starting to play, writers rounds and stuff like that. I didn't really take that many gigs and stuff when I moved here. And I still had a lot of gigs on the weekends. I was still weekend warrior it back towards North Carolina and Virginia and stuff.
So you would just trek back?
Yeah, I would just trek back, man. A lot of weekends. I was running, 6-7 hours back to North Carolina, playing whatever gig I'd booked, before I moved, and then come back to Nashville. And I did that really for like the first year, probably. Well, almost a year, because COVID happened.
Mm.
But yeah, so I did that for the first little bit, and then once I started getting into the whole like writer circles and writers rounds, and I just kept meeting people.
Because you told me you skipped right past Broadway.
I did.
Did you just know the machine, the capitalistic machine that it had become, was not going to be conducive to what you like? You'd already done that on the East Coast,
100%.
Right?
Yeah, and I think it's kind of one of those things like, what do I want to do, right? And you have to make that decision where you're like, and commit to it. Like, what is my goal, and what are my goals, and what am I moving to Nashville to get from Nashville? And for me, it was songwriting and songs, So when I moved here, I kind of, I was pretty educated on kind of what Broadway looked like and what that whole thing was. And I've been making trips out to town for 7 or 8 years. But I kind of knew myself too much too, to know like, okay, if I get down on Broadway, I'm going to make plenty of money and I'm going to love it and I can do that. And I'll get in a comfort area. And I'm like, no, I really want to move to Nashville to get out of that and put myself in a completely different world with songwriting and try to really create something there. So I kind of passed past the Broadway thing. I still did some acoustic shows and stuff down at Doc Holliday's, and stuff. You make great money.
Well, that's the spot.
That's a cool spot.
Yeah, that winding staircase and people just yelling song requests from directly
100%.
above you.
Yeah, and you get that real drunk guy that just comes in there and gives you $100, for some random song you won't remember tomorrow, and you're like, yeah, you make pretty good money doing that.
Yeah.
So I'd go down there, like play the middle of the day slot some days and stuff, like 12 to 3.
That's the money, the 3 to 6 on Saturday.
They ain't spent no money yet. They're just, here you go. No, so I would do that, some, but mostly playing like Scoreboard and Nashville Palace. And then ended up playing at the local and starting the Monday night thing, coming out of COVID. So that's kind of, and for me now, I travel a lot on the weekends for shows and stuff, but we still do that Monday night thing every Monday night. And it's just our night. It's like our off night.
Yeah, that's how I feel. That's how Sunday nights are for me at Layla's, because Broadway's died down a little bit.
Yes.
And we kicked the girl out of the band to bring the steel guitar in.
No. Messed up, man.
And,
although steel guitar,
it's
gotta have that.
Dude, we had. Do you know Mike Bork?
Oh yeah,
he played with us the other night.
Oh man,
and it was
what
like
a freak.
It's like, what are we doing up here?
What planet did you come from?
Yeah,
because he's
just
a monster.
Exceptional.
Yeah,
and he liked my messed up sense of humor. And I think he leaned over. We never met in person before, and he was a couple hours in. He's like, we're going to get along just fine.
Yeah. Dude, the first time I saw him play was down at Music City Bar.
Was he doubling up?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was doing all the madness. Man, I love that place too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was my hangout spot, because I moved here and I really just latched on to Vince Moreno. Because that's kind of the style of show that I do, because I'm from like the, like a messing with the crowd,
100%
joking type thing.
Yeah.
And I remember just seeing his band. I was like, this guy can sing, he can pick his ass off, and his brain, it never stops. He's the funniest guy.
IQ. Vince is a smart one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first time I saw him, I was like anybody.
Falling out of your chair.
I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. And on top of that, like insanely talented dude.
Oh yeah.
You know, but yeah, I used to love. We would play scoreboard, and then as soon as we were done, we would go over to Music City and catch the tail end of the set over there, and it was always awesome. Or go in there and see Music City Playboys and all those guys, and just get a real dose of some grown men.
Yeah,
some country
really,
music, dude.
Lifers.
Yeah,
Lifers. I would when I moved here. I did the. I went to the Legion. I guess everybody ends up at Honky Tonk Tuesday at the Legion if you care about country music,
right.
And then I think I was single at the time, and I was like, maybe I'll meet a lady in here. Then I was just like, wait, every chick in here looks like Zooey Deschanel.
That's actually
All got
hilarious.
jet black hair and short bangs.
Yeah, every one of them. That's actually awesome.
New girl territory.
Yeah, I would just end up staying in the corner.
Yeah,
because I don't dance or anything.
Me neither, man. I can't get I've never even had the urge to.
I try to dance with my wife sometimes,
Dance at all.
you know.
And she thinks about
if I've had a
divorcing you.
couple, I'm feeling good, and she says I just kind of like end up just kind of like dragging her around a little bit on the dance floor.
So
I'm like, I give up.
The COVID thing, it's great. It's impossible not to talk about. I think we're going to look back and be like,
Everybody,
socially, the social division and just complications that it caused is like akin to a war or a national tragedy.
100%.
And so it sounds like you just kind of started to get on your feet, and then you got the rug pulled out from under. Did you go back? Did you stay here? Did you?
Dude, I stayed here and
trudge through.
I did.
Have you ever did you get a different job or anything?
Yeah. So I actually had moved here and was working for a roofing company when I first moved here, and then playing weekend shows and just starting to write with people. I would write with anybody I could write with, Met Monty. That was like a game changer just because of him coming into my life too. But started writing more serious, in a serious fashion there, because that, Monty Holmes wrote Troubadour for George Strait. Like, let's go,
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, never again. Oh man, when did you stop loving me? Oh my God. Anyway, so started doing that.
Thank you, Monty.
Yeah, dude. He's the man. He's a stud. But started doing that, and then had got offered a publishing deal. It didn't really work out, so I ended up not taking the deal. And then COVID hit, and I was like, well, I got to do something, and I'm just, I like to work. I prefer just working, and making money, and I'm not too good to do it. So I got like certified in like health insurance and started helping people navigate that whole complicated repercussion.
You said that like
COVID.
a person who shouldn't be certified.
Yeah, I don't even know. I was like, I got to do
yeah.
something, and somehow stumbled onto doing that, and was like, okay. So I did that for a minute, and it was short lived. And then I started going back out, and I would even like go in and try to, and I would like work, for my computer or do whatever I was doing, and then I would like go write, if it was cool and everything was 6 feet or whatever, but everybody was cool with it because we didn't know, man. With COVID, I mean, it was like
it was terrifying.
It was terrifying.
At
Nobody knew what it was or what was happening, and they really, the world shut down there for a minute.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was 3/14 of 2020, and I went to the grocery store, and everybody told me like that the world was about to shut down or something.
Right.
I went, and it was like apocalypse, like stuff getting ripped off the shelves.
Yeah, dude.
And I went home. I called my mom, tears in my eyes, and I'm like, I think I need to buy a gun.
Right.
Like, I don't know
what's happening.
Yeah, what's happening here?
It was nuts, dude. And then everybody was like, "All right, like, well, we're gonna postpone this meeting or postpone this or do whatever. Like, we'll get back up in a few weeks when all this dies down."
When it all dies down.
It's like, what? Like in a few weeks, which is what we thought. And then all of a sudden,
initially, I think it was 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was like 2 weeks or
2 or 3,
something.
maybe.
And then all of a sudden it was 2 years,
Yeah.
which is nuts. And for us though, I mean, I did that, and then it wasn't too long before I was like, I was staying busy writing all the time. And honestly, I'd kind of put myself in a position where I had scaled back my shows, and I was already kind of in a position of taking like a year off of doing a lot of shows and just trying to be in Nashville writing songs and not being distracted with anything else. So weirdly, I was kind of in a good position to do that, when COVID happened. But then it wasn't terribly long till we started going back out and playing a few gigs in a few places, and a couple places in town that were cool. We'd go out and do that, and then it kind of started tailing off, and we were full steam ahead.
So you said prior to that you had you'd gotten in talks to do a publishing deal, and it didn't quite work out. And you were saying too that you were just writing with whoever you could all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure being in the writer circle of Nashville, the cliche like we should write together.
Oh man, yes.
And it never unfolds.
Yep.
So I'm just kind of curious, like so many. You look at anyone who goes anywhere on their Wikipedia page, and it's like he moved to Nashville in 2017.
Yeah.
And then his number one hit song came out, and you're just like, so really just to
What
break
does that look like?
Yeah, break it down.
I love that.
On the, how did you go from shaking people's hands to actually getting people to spend their time with you writing songs? And an extension of that, how do you rise up in the community enough to where you can even be a possibility for someone that would want to hire you or contract you in a publishing deal?
Oh yeah, I think that's an awesome. That's a really good question. It kind of looks like this, and this is what it looked like for me. I always go back to what I know when I first moved here, and I know how to play and sing. I come from the bluegrass world, and we believe in trying to cut your gig when you get on stage, right? So I always tell people, I'm like, play as much as you can, and every time you step on stage, cut your gig. Get on stage and do something that impresses people. And don't like try to I'm not trying to say like go out there and do every hot lick, but I'm saying like try to be competent at what you're doing every time you get on stage. And if you do that enough and you're around people who care and really good songwriters and you care about songwriting and you're applying yourself to try to write songs and you're writing with a lot of people and you're trying, and you're writing songs, 100%ers, or whatever it is, those opportunities will present themselves. Because then it starts, once you do sign a publishing deal, it kind of changes quite a bit at that point in time, and you're trying to aim at certain goals. And for me as an artist, it's a whole nother thing. But
so you can't sell your house if you don't mow the yard first, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. But even just for telling people who are moving here or doing whatever, just play as much as you can in town and try to do something competent musically every time you get on stage and take it serious. You know what I mean? And if you do that, and you'll write with people and try to write great songs and try as hard as you can to write a good song. Every time you go in a writing room, and it's hard to do. It's really hard to do.
So what about surviving discouragement? Was there moments where you'd reach out to somebody that maybe you looked up to, that you admired, and then it just fell flat?
Yeah.
Or were you just talented enough that they're like, okay.
No, I think for me, I'm sure that there was some moments like that. But it kind of goes back to like earning your stripes and getting your skin a little thicker when you come here and not taking everything personal, because it's a business. It's also, it's been taken serious, songwriting's taken serious. And I mean, don't ever get discouraged if someone can't write with you or they don't have time to write with you or whatever it is. Don't take it personal in any kind of way. Because chances are they probably got a full plate and they're out there, you kind of get in this, this work ethic flow of week to week where you're like, okay, I've got these rights scheduled. You end up having a point person who schedules your rights, and you schedule some for yourself too. But you're kind of finding, your group of writers and you're writing as much as you can, and they'll keep you really busy. But I always tell, don't ever get discouraged if somebody don't have time to write with you or they can't. And I would tell that to anybody too that's even reached out to me. Like, it's not that I don't want to write with you at all. I do. It's like I don't hardly have time to eat chicken in the evenings. You know what I mean? Yeah. Before I go to bed, but
I'll just go beat that door down with
just
my
come
acoustic
on,
guitar in hand.
Yeah, ready to go.
I know you're in there, Will.
Yeah, get the pencil ready.
Yeah,
man, it's so true though. But yeah, just keep going out and playing, man.
Would you care to share why that publishing deal didn't work out?
Nah, we'll leave it.
Yeah,
it was, it's just typical. It's just business.
Yeah.
At that point in time, it's like this weird little thing where you go into like business mode and lawyers are involved and they're kind of sorting out all the specifics of the deal. And, if they don't agree with you, then
I didn't know if it was a thing where like what they presented to you, you were like, actually, I'm not interested in that. Like,
no, it's actually a really great company, great people. It just in that business mode of we're sorting out the details, Sometimes you get them sorted out and sometimes you don't. And so in that situation, I didn't end up going with that publishing company, but man, they're great. They're doing all kinds of really cool things. And then I ended up over at Universal. And so that's where I am now.
So when did that, when did you getting in talks to acquire that deal happen? And you've been riding that ever since, right?
Yeah, I've been over at Universal ever since, and that was August before last. So August will be 2 years that I signed the publishing deal with Universal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's impressive, man. I mean, that's a
man,
that's a life.
Everybody over there is awesome. They're so world class, and they've been so supportive of me from day one. I couldn't be more blessed to be at a better publishing. I mean, Universal's awesome. So that's when we really got to work on this stuff that I'm aiming at now, and all the stuff that I'm doing, and I ain't slowed down since. It's just been wide open.
Yeah. So acquiring that, clearly people in that camp know who you are. And do you have songs that you present to them like in that meeting, and you're like, these are the kind of things that can show what I got,
Yeah, you kind of figure out that together too. Once you do the deal, you're kind of, looking at what songs, and it really kind of goes back to playing live. I do this in a writing room a lot of times. I'm like, man, what songs do I need? What songs can I play live? What kind of song can I do live that's going to make somebody want to scream, get them pumped up and excited. I take that into a writing room, and I think that also looks at your overall goal. What do you want to do as an artist? You know what I mean? Do you want to be the guy? And I mean, I say this like there's nothing wrong with any of this. Like, do you want to be an artist who goes into small listening room shows and plays, really profound, deep songs? Do you want to be a guy that goes out and tries to play clubs? Do you want to be a guy that is aiming for, what are you aiming at? And for me, I always aim at the biggest thing I can aim at, and I try to write those kind of songs, and they're very few and far between, but that's what I'm aiming at, And I've always been a believer in trying to set your goals high, like set them high, like set goals and try to, as hard as you can, to achieve those goals. So that's, once I signed with the publishing deal with Universal, that was immediately what we started working on, and you find those writers in town that can help you do it. And man, there's all kinds of pretty stout horsepower when it comes to songwriting and songwriters in this town. It's just been since I signed there, it's just been so much fun getting to be in the room with those guys. It's awesome to watch how their minds work.
Yeah, and it seems like the goal setting and the action towards that is such a big part of your trajectory. Yep. I think everybody says, set goals, but I don't really believe in that, because we all have the same goals, right?
100%.
We both lay on the couch and say, well, I'd love to play a show in front of 80,000 people one day. But it's the making it your realities, your actions, and your words for that matter got to follow in suit of what that goal is.
Yeah, and I think there's a fine line too of like getting up in the morning and you get on your Instagram or whatever, and there's some dude giving you some kind of like inspirational speech where they're like, you can do whatever you
David
want.
Goggins.
You know what I mean? Like, you look at yourself in the mirror, and I was like, dude, I don't want to hear that, dude. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, give me something realistic. And it's like, okay, if you're going to be realistic, because I can't stand that. You know what I mean? Like, just preaching inspiration to be doing it for some reason. I'm like, okay, I've always been the guy that's like, let's get to it. Like, what is it, And I think it's just being intentional with everything you're doing. Like, just be intentional, Like, if you're going to go out and do a show, and you're going out to do a cover show or whatever, it's like, be intentional about how you're doing that show and how can I do that better? You know what I mean? How can I grow that? If I want to be a songwriter, it's like, I want to be intentional every day about how I can be present with whoever I'm with, not in the writing room on my phone the whole time, texting and looking through Instagram. Like, how can I be engaged and try to intentionally become a better songwriter, a better guitar player, better singer, better in the studio, how can I be better about what I'm doing, And I think if you're an artist, you're already like learning how to play guitar or whatever instrument you're playing, you're learning how to sing, obviously you're a creative mind. So creative minds already are always trying to like grow their craft or like become better. So it's like, just be intentional about it, dude, every day.
Yeah. So what is the lifestyle like, of, now that you have the publishing deal? It's a real job.
Yeah.
And it's 5 days a week that you're in there like a desk job almost.
Well,
right?
the first this is kind of this is fun for a lot of people too, I guess, who don't really know what that side of things look like.
Yeah, that's why I'm not sure. I hope you don't think I'm like dumbing it down too much.
No.
I think
I didn't
so
know.
many people say, like, I'd love to have a publishing deal. I'd love to do
what does it look
doing.
like? Yeah, man.
What is the what do the baby steps look like, not the staircase?
Yeah,
you know?
we can even kind of what it is. I mean, I think when I first got in there, it was like, okay, you know, when I moved to town to make up for some lost time. I was like, I just moved here ready to get after it. And I was writing 5 days a week, every week, you know, for that first. I mean, I still write 5 days a week, a lot of weeks.
You're already doing the job without getting paid.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing it, man, and you're in there 5 days a week, and sometimes you'll squeeze in another write in the afternoon to finish up some song that you had started with somebody else, or you'll do it in the morning time before your 11 o'clock write, and you're doing that. And it's a little bit different for me as an artist, I think, too, because most of the time we're writing for me, so it's like it's a really cool place to be, and I'm super fortunate to be in that position, but be able to go into a writing room and be like, okay, like, what can I create that represents who Will Jones is as a country artist, and take out on the road and play for people or record possibly, you know. But it's also fun to write, you know, target other artists too, you know.
So you do that as well? Like, do you go in
sometimes.
and they're like, hey, Luke Bryan's looking for a song like this, and you pull out your Shake It For Me hat?
Yes, every once in a while I do it, just, you know, and I think it's smart to practice that tool in the tool belt, you know, and you know, like I said, I'm still relatively new in this town. I mean, you know, they always say it takes, you know, 10 years to even start becoming a songwriter in this town. But for me, it's like, you know, I'm fortunate to get to write with some really good writers and learn from the best. But yeah, sometimes I go in there and I'm like, hey, let's try to aim at whoever the artist is, and you know, you listen to their music and you kind of get yourself in that mindset and try to write a song for them, you know. But most of the time I'm writing for me. But.
And there are other people that they bring in to write songs with you, for you?
Yeah, basically, you know, it's like you kind of find that tribe of writers that's like, okay, I understand who Will Jones is, and I understand what he's aiming at, and I get him musically, and then those cats come in and we start writing together to try to aim at that bullseye, you know, of what I'm trying to do music wise.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I always bring this up with every especially artists that I talk to, because a lot of us exist in a realm of emotional extremes.
Yeah.
In the artist world.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about social media is such a monstrosity of a force in our world today. It's your resume, it's LinkedIn, it's your Instagram can make or break within the first 3 pin posts if somebody is going to give a shit about you or not. So what is your relationship with social media, posting on it, and how do you juggle the career preservation part and the not losing your mind scrolling and looking at the likes, you know?
Yeah, man, what a good point. That's such a relevant topic now.
It's huge. Like, it affects everybody so much.
It really does. And for me, I'm kind of a little bit old school. I post if I'm doing something, you know. If I'm hanging in town just writing and grilling hot dogs in the backyard, I don't really post, you know. And that's probably something I could probably do better about. Because I really just like posting about things that I'm doing or got going on or whatever. But it's a whole nother animal, you know. I mean, when I saw the, you know, TikTok and all the things, this is the way I look at it. I think it's extremely valuable and useful because you can reach insane amount of people from your bedroom, you know, or your little music room or whatever you're doing. But I think there's definitely a fine line there of being like, you know, doing that versus playing live. And I'm always a live performer. I'm like, hey, I want to win people over and meet people with a live show, you know. So my balance to it is I'm really good at sharing an Instagram story. You know, somebody's already tagged me in. Let's put that little share button there. Got that one down. No, I get on there, man, and I just take it, you know, I kind of take it with a grain of salt and just use it for what I feel is relevant to what I'm doing. You know, if I'm playing a show, I'll post about the show. If I want to get on there because the mood strikes me to sing some song that I like a lot, then I'll do that. But I think even for me, you know, I have to remind myself all the time that it's like, okay, if I don't post on my social media platforms, then people don't see me or they don't, you know, and so you have to get on there and do that, which is something that I definitely got to do better about myself. But
the frustrating
it's a definitely like an effort that you have to make yourself do.
That's why I'm so fixated on it, is because none of us really want to do it. And you said, if I don't
100%.
do it, I'm not going to be seen.
Yeah.
And I think back, 30 years ago,
Come on.
to be seen, somebody was going to be at your show on Monday night. And now we're not at your show and we're watching videos of your show. So it's just such a strange
It is disconnected
time.
thing.
Yeah.
And I'm still like, I'm just such a live performer.
You were here last week when I had Adam on.
Yeah.
And I talked to him about it. And he said, he's like, I wish social media would burn. He's like, I hate it, but I do all my content one day a month. I get like a
Just stack it up.
camera crew to come out with me. They edit it all up. And then I've got 30 days of stuff worth to post.
Pretty efficient.
But I said, how ironic is it that you hate social media and you want people to listen to your music so that they're invested in their moment, and you're posting content that's pulling them out of their moment to be invested in your music. So it's like this eternal paradox.
It is.
And that's why I think it's just, at that point, it just kind of comes to like a mental health thing. You gotta, like,
you gotta separate from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't just be living in that virtual world all the time.
Yeah.
And that's why for me, is the same way that I want to present what I do in an authentic, real fashion, because I very much believe in being real and who you are musically and in general. The same way with social media. It's like, if you just get so engulfed in trying to chase that thing all the time, you're going to get really distracted from, actually creating something that lasts a long time. And not to say that it won't. I mean, people are doing it all the time. But for me, it's just healthier to just really focus on what I'm doing as a live performer. And I mean, even the first few years I was playing club shows and stuff, I had never released any country music. And I mean, I had never released a country single until this past December, ever.
Sedona.
And I hadn't done that, and I was still staying booked year-round throughout the whole year. And I would laugh when I talked to like a promoter or a club owner, and I'd be like, dude, I wouldn't hire me if I were you.
Mm-hmm.
You've never heard me. It was just word of mouth, and it was just reputation and word of mouth of what we were doing live. And I kind of love that, because that's the old school way,
It seems like it keeps coming back to just that being on stage,
stage,
playing
man.
and singing.
Get up there and play and sing for people.
Yeah.
Entertain them, make them laugh, make them cry, do all the things, and make them have fun. But don't let the social media thing just dominate you,
So tell me about Sedona. That's the first song you've got out under the Will Jones.
That's right.
It's stuck on you now, man.
It's there
Don't
forever.
get rid of that.
Forever. Sedona. Man, I love that song. I wrote that song with Lee Starr and Davis Corley. Davis is a really close friend of mine. I write a ton of music with Davis. And we wrote that song and ended up releasing it back in December while I was out at the NFR in Vegas doing a bunch of shows for the National Finals Rodeo. But it's a good old cowboy love song, man. It's a lot. I love that song, and so
I do too. I listened to it in the shower this morning to warm up for our podcast.
Nice, get a little Will Jones in your life.
I was already done rubbing. It was just a rinse. It was a rinse. Listen,
yeah, absolutely, dude. I hear you. I hear you. It's old combing the hair.
Yeah. I was done washing by that point.
All right. Well, that makes me feel. Yeah. No, yeah, Sedona's cool, man. And I just love the song from day one when we wrote it. If you love it, record it, put it out.
Well, I think too all the auxiliary instruments, like the steel, sounds so good. It's so it's a refreshing, and I think too that you've got like when I've heard you sing, you got kind of a Mark Chestnut vibe vocally.
Yeah.
Mark Chestnut mixed with Keith Whitley.
Yeah,
and that song, when you hear that, you hit play on that on Spotify, it's a real country song. There's no hip hop beats, and there's nothing wrong with people that got hip hop beats.
Dude. Yeah, take
but
that.
But kind of comes back to
that
that thematic of preservation we were talking about. So in the studio, the session musicians or whatever, you listening to that, communicating with the producer, was it just initially you're like, yeah, this is right, this sounds right, or in the process of making the song, was there a moment where you're like, okay, this is what I dreamed like this song would sound like?
Yeah, man. If you've never got to experience it, let me just tell you that when you first take a song into a studio and you hear those session guys cut in on it and you start creating what the signature licks are, if you haven't already, and start building that track and you hear it, it's like, I know this last time I went in the studio, which is a whole other thing, but when you hear those songs for the first time, you're like, wow, it sounds like a song that needs to be put. It immediately sounds like a record cut when those guys play it. It's amazing. But we still are pretty methodical about how we want the guitars and what I have a lot of hand in that, a lot of say in that, which is awesome and it's so much fun. And I'm super grateful for the session players. I'll be in the booth with those guys when we go down and record this stuff, and a lot of times playing acoustic or whatever. But yeah, just being intentional about it goes back to what do you want to do? I've always wanted to be the guy that has a band that gets on stage and turns your amps on and starts playing, and what you hear is what you get. And I think there's a way to record that way. You look at people like Stapleton and people like that are doing it. Sturgill, 100%. Yeah. Where it's like a turn your amps on and play music.
That's another rarity about your band. You have 2 electric guitars.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I like having another guitar. I've actually always been that way. Even with the bluegrass band, me and my dad both play guitars, but guitars, man, are kind of like, they just fill a lot of space. And for me, I'm getting to this position now where I like to be able to entertain a crowd, and if you're carrying all the guitar weight all the time, you can do it. But sometimes you want to move around, and I enjoy hearing other people play, and I really love playing guitar with other guitar players. You know what I mean? And that's a whole nother thing of enjoying that with the whole band, of how everybody stays out of each other's way and everybody's listening. And you're kind of making music happen, dude. Having fun with music. You got an instrument in your hand. Play music.
Breathing in that space.
Yeah, dude.
So what's next for you, man? What's your year ahead looking like? I know
it's exciting.
I need you to record that one I like.
Yeah.
Whiskey Mississippi.
Oh yeah, Whiskey Sippy, dude.
Whiskey Sippy.
We actually cut it. We actually have tracked it. Yeah, we tracked it.
It's that surprise songs. B flat in there. You never get
it in there,
that
dude.
Surprise B flat in there like that.
Yeah. Getting all the sounds in there. Yeah, we tracked it. We've tracked a bunch of stuff that I'm super excited about, and supposed to have the mixes back any day now.
Do you know what the next single is going to be?
I think
can't spill
I think
spill
I
the
do,
beans.
but I think I'm gonna keep it.
Yeah, keep it.
I'm gonna keep the old secret in my back pocket.
Sounds.
But I got
right.
an idea, and I'm super stoked. So we've cut all this stuff, and we're just getting ready to get a program for putting it out and getting it to the people, and start going out and playing them, man.
Are you on like a timeline where they're like, oh, you got 6 weeks, you got to put this song out, or is
No,
it just
not
kind
really.
of like communicative,
Pretty much.
breathable?
Yep.
When
it's right,
yeah,
put it out there, and we're really close. And I've already got this stuff cut, and we've kind of got a game plan for that, and I've got a bunch of other stuff I want to cut already. I mean, I got songs I can't wait for people to hear, and I do a lot of that stuff in our live shows too. So if you ever see me coming around or whatever, come get in on it. It's fun. We got some cool stuff, I think. I'm excited.
It's an exciting time, dude. There's you, Zach Top.
Dude, Zach's so good.
Yeah, we were actually, we had dinner with Brent Mason and his wife, and
Nice.
and I had asked him if he knew who Zach was. Well, he played guitar on Zach's songs.
Yeah.
And he was just like, man, I haven't heard a voice like that.
He's a singer, dude.
And so since Joe Diffie, and then
Yep.
I know like May Estes is kind of in your camp. She's from
dude.
Arkansas too.
He's a good friend.
Can sing her ass off.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting time that people like you guys.
There's a bunch of cool cats in town,
Yeah.
man. There's a bunch of talent in town. I'm excited. I'm excited as a fan, to watch people like Zach and May and friends of mine do this stuff that they're doing, because it makes me have fun too, So it is, man. It's an exciting time. It's a good time right now, and I'm super thrilled about everything we're doing too. I can't wait to share it with everybody.
And then my last question for you is: do you think that the pendulum is going to swing, that the tide is going to turn, that popular mainstream country music could become country music again? Or
Absolutely.
do you think we're doomed in the trajectory of electronic dance music?
No. The reason I say that is because if you look at how much people are craving authentic, raw music right now, if it's Zach Bryan or if it's anybody that feels anything that feels real and raw, and kind of like not perfect, but just feels like that.
Voice memo kind of.
People want real stuff, and I think it goes back to live shows too. That's why they're going out and supporting all these live shows like crazy right now. I think people are in a great mindset right now of really enjoying why we listen to music, is they want something real, and that's what country music is. It's what real country music's always been about is, singing to the working class, singing to people and singing about problems or heartbreak or singing about drinking beer and having a good time. It's like, it's always been a genre of music that's about being real and authentic. So man, I think it's full swing back. I think it's there now.
Well, my man, I absolutely think that you are an embodiment of what you just described, and I admire what you and your guys are working on. I'm excited to see what you got coming ahead. Even though you won't spill the beans on the podcast, I'm sure the next single is going to be earth-shatteringly good.
It's gonna be fun.
And thanks again for walking across the street,
taking the long trek.
That long trek.
Yeah, dude. I appreciate you having me, man. This is fun.
Yeah, it was an honor, Will. Good luck with your what you got going on, man. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you in the front yard.
Sounds good, man. Get out there and help me weed eat one day.
I need to borrow some clippers so we can take care of this tree.
Got you, dude.
I might do that right now.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Will Jones, thanks for coming in, buddy. We'll see you next time on the Payton Collier Podcast.
See ya.
Sedona.